Dominic Romano didn't build Chicago's most feared criminal syndicate by ignoring red flags. So, when he caught his obsessively loyal secretary fleeing the penthouse office in the dead of night, he knew someone was dead. But he never expected the terrifying ultimatum taped blindly beneath her mahogany desk. The 45th floor of the Romano Holdings building was supposed to be empty at 1 in the morning. Dominic Romano, a man whose legitimate real estate empire was built on a bedrock of extortion, smuggling, and cold-blooded inheritance, stepped out of his private elevator. He was exhausted, his tie loosened, the shadow of a dark stubble masking his sharp, aristocratic jawline. He had just spent 6 hours negotiating a fragile truce with the Corsican cartel down at the docks, and all he wanted was a scotch and the quiet sanctuary of his office. Instead, he heard the frantic sound of tearing cardboard. Dominic paused, his hand instinctively hovering over the cold steel of the Sig Sauer concealed beneath his tailored suit jacket. The noise was coming from the executive anteroom. He moved silently across the thick Persian carpets, turning the corner to see a sliver of light spilling from the cracked door of the secretary's office. Inside was Penelope Hayes. Penny had been Dominic's executive assistant for 4 years. She was a woman who didn't fit the mold of the plastic, size 0 models that usually populated the front desks of Chicago's billionaire elite. Penny was fat, beautifully and unapologetically so, with lush, generous curves, thick thighs, and a soft, round face framed by wild chestnut curls. She wore sensible, comfortable clothes, usually oversized cashmere cardigans that Dominic secretly wanted to rip off her, and possessed an intellect so sharp she practically ran the legal front of his empire single-handedly. She knew his secrets. She knew which files to burn, which judges were on the payroll, and how he liked his coffee. Dominic had harbored a quiet, burning obsession for her since her first interview. Her softness grounded him. Her resilience fascinated him. But right now, Penelope was falling apart. Her usually pristine desk was a disaster zone. She was shoving files, a pair of spare flats, and her favorite ceramic coffee mug into a brown cardboard box with trembling hands. Her breathing was ragged, her chest heaving beneath her silk blouse, and her face was pale, stripped of its usual warm, rosy flush. A thin sheen of cold sweat glistened on her forehead. "Leaving early, Miss Hayes?" Dominic's deep, gravelly voice cut through the room like a physical blow. Penny gasped, spinning around so fast she knocked a stack of folders onto the floor. Her wide, hazel eyes locked onto his, and Dominic felt a strange jolt in his chest. It wasn't just surprise in her eyes. It was pure, unadulterated terror. "Mr. Romano," she stammered, her voice shaking as she clutched a framed photo of her younger brother to her chest. I didn't think you were coming back to the office tonight." "Obviously," Dominic said, stepping fully into the room and closing the heavy oak door behind him with a decisive click. He didn't lock it, but the sound was final enough. He leaned against the door frame, his dark eyes analyzing every frantic micro-expression on her face. "What are you doing, Penny?" "I'm resigning," she blurted out. She turned her back to him, shoving the photo into the box and grabbing her coat. "Effective immediately. I'll forfeit my severance. I'll sign whatever NDAs you need by morning. I have to go." Dominic's posture went rigid. "Resigning? At 1 in the morning? Like a thief in the night?" "It's a family emergency," she lied, her voice cracking. "My brother Liam. He's sick. I have to move out of state." tonight. Dominic stepped forward, the predator in him fully awakened. He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides, until he was standing just inches behind her. He could smell her signature vanilla perfume, but it was tainted by the sour, sharp scent of adrenaline. He looked down at her. Even in her heels, at the top of her head barely reached his chin. "Look at me," he commanded, his voice dropping an octave. Penny squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head. "Please, Dominic, just let me leave. Don't make this harder." Dominic. She never used his first name. Never. It was a line they never crossed. He reached out, his large, calloused hand gently but firmly gripping her thick, soft shoulders. He felt her flinch, a violent tremor racking her entire body. He turned her around to face him. Tears were spilling over her thick lashes, tracking through her makeup. "You're lying," Dominic said softly, his thumb brushing a tear from her cheek. "You love this job. You love Chicago. And I spoke to your brother yesterday afternoon. When he called the office looking for you, he sounded perfectly healthy." Penny let out a choked sob, trying to pull away. But Dominic's grip held her securely against him. "You don't understand," she whispered frantically, her eyes darting downward. Not at his chest, not at the floor, but specifically towards the empty space under her heavy mahogany desk. She did it 3 times. A rapid, involuntary flick of the eyes. Dominic's instincts flared. His gaze followed hers to the desk. "What's under there, Penny?" "Nothing," she practically shrieked, lunging forward to grab her box. "Please, I have a flight to catch." Dominic moved faster. He stepped around her, placing his imposing frame between Penny and the exit. "Sit down," he ordered. "Dominic, please." "If I don't leave," I said, "sit." The sheer authority in his voice left no room for argument. Penny collapsed into the leather guest chair, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Dominic approached her desk. To the untrained eye, it was perfectly normal. But Dominic survived in the underworld by noticing what others missed. He crouched down, his knees popping slightly, and peered into the deep leg well of the desk. At first, there was nothing, just the dark wood paneling. But then he saw it, taped to the underside of the desk, hidden perfectly in the blind spot, where Penny's knees would normally rest, was a bulky manila envelope and a cheap plastic flip phone. A blinking red light on the phone indicated it was active. Dominic didn't touch the device immediately. He knew better than to pull blindly at strange electronics. He reached under, tracing the edges of the tape. It wasn't wired to explosives. It was just packing tape. He ripped the package free. Penny let out a muffled whimper from the chair behind him. "They said, if I told you, you would both die." Dominic stood up, placing the envelope and the burner phone on top of the desk. The phone was connected to an active call, but the screen was dark. Someone was listening. Without a second of hesitation, Dominic picked up the burner phone, walked over to his whiskey decanter, and dropped the phone into a glass of ice water. It fizzled, the screen flashing once before dying completely. "Who is they, Mia Cara?" Dominic asked, his voice deadly calm as he turned his attention to the heavy envelope. "Open it," she choked out, wrapping her arms around her plump stomach in a self-soothing gesture. Dominic tore the top off the manila envelope and dumped its contents onto the pristine glass surface of the desk. 3 items fell out. The first was a glossy 8 by 10 photograph. Dominic's jaw clenched. It was a picture of Liam, Penny's younger brother, sitting in his college dorm room. The photo had been taken through the window. The crosshairs of a sniper rifle, clearly visible, perfectly centered on the young man's forehead. A timestamp in the corner proved it had been taken less than 4 hours ago. The second item was a silver chain necklace. Dominic recognized it instantly. Penny bought it for him for his 21st birthday. The silver links were crusted with fresh, dried blood. The third item was a handwritten note on expensive cream-colored cardstock. The handwriting was elegant, almost artistic. "She handles your money, Romano. We handle her family. Tell your fat pig of a secretary to transfer 20 million into the offshore account provided by 2 hands old AM, and then disappear. If she alerts you, her brother's head explodes. If she doesn't leave town, he explodes. Tick-tock." Dominic stared at the word pig. A sudden, blinding rage washed over him, so intense it made his vision blur. He had killed men for less. He had dismantled entire crime families for minor insults. But this, a desecration. Someone had penetrated his fortress, threatened the woman he was quietly falling in love with, and insulted her in the same breath. "When did you find this?" Dominic asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "An hour ago," Penny whispered, rocking back and forth. "I came back to the office to grab the quarterly reports I left behind. When I sat down, my knee brushed against it. I didn't know what it was. I opened it, and the phone rang." "What did they say?" "A man." She sobbed, her tears flowing freely now. "He said he had a man aiming a rifle at Liam right now. He knew everything, Dominic. He knew Liam's class schedule. He knew I had the security clearance to move the offshore funds. He told me to pack my things, do the transfer, and leave the country. Or he would give the order to fire. I was just about to authorize the wire transfer when you walked in." "And you were going to leave?" Dominic stated, looking at her. "You were going to run?" "What choice did I have?" Penny cried out, standing up, her curves trembling with righteous indignation and raw fear. "You think I care about your cartel money? You think I care about this job when my brother's life is on the line? He's all I have left. I had to do it. I had to pay them and run." "You should have come to me," Dominic said, taking a step toward her. "They would have known," Penny yelled, backing away until her hips hit the filing cabinet. "They bypassed your $1 million security system to tape a threat to my desk, Dominic. Someone on your payroll let them in. If I went to you, Liam would all die." She was right. Dominic's mind raced. The 45th floor required retinal scans and a biometric key card. The only people who had access were his most trusted lieutenants. Matteo, his head of security. Lorenzo, his cousin and underboss. And a handful of elite guards. There was a rat in his house, a rat who had just targeted the single most vulnerable, precious thing in Dominic's life. Dominic crossed the room, ignoring Penny's attempt to shrink away from him. He crowded her against the filing cabinet, placing a hand on either side of her waist, trapping her. She looked up at him, breathless, her chest rising and falling heavily against his suit. "You aren't going anywhere," Dominic said, his eyes burning into hers. "And you aren't paying them a dime." "Dominic, please. They'll kill him." "I'm the boss of the Chicago outfit. Dominic interrupted, his voice a low, lethal purr. No one breathes in this city without my permission. No one takes a shot without my say-so. You think I'm going to let some faceless coward take what belongs to me? Penny's breath hitched. What? What belongs to you? Dominic reached up, his rough fingers tangling in the soft hair at the nape of her neck. He pulled her forward, resting his forehead against hers. You, he whispered fiercely. You belong to me, Penny, and by extension, your brother falls under my protection. If they wanted a war, they'd just started one. But they made a fatal mistake. What? She breathed, mesmerized by the dark, protective fury radiating from him. They gave me 45 minutes before their deadline, Dominic said, pulling out his encrypted smartphone. He dialed a number, keeping his other arm wrapped securely around Penny's thick waist, pulling her soft body flush against his hard frame. She melted into him, her terror briefly overridden by the sheer magnetic heat of him. The line picked up on the first ring. Matteo. Dominic barked into the phone. Wake up the tactical team. We have a breach on floor 45. And Matteo? Yes, boss, the gruff voice answered. Send an extraction unit to Evanston. Liam Hayes's dorm. I want the perimeter secured, and I want whoever is looking through that sniper scope brought to me alive. We have a rat to catch. Dominic hung up the phone and looked down at the beautiful, trembling woman in his arms. The game had changed. The shadows had come for her, but they forgot who ruled the dark. The clock on the wall of the 45th floor read 1:18 a.m. The silence in the executive suite of Romano Holdings was oppressive, heavy with the metallic scent of impending violence. Dominic kept Penelope close, guiding her to the sprawling leather sofa in the corner of his private office. He poured her a generous measure of Macallan 25-year-old Scotch, pressing the heavy crystal tumbler into her trembling hands. The amber liquid sloshed over the rim, dampening the cuff of her oversized cashmere sweater, but she gripped it like a lifeline. Drink, Dominic commanded gently, taking the seat beside her. He didn't crowd her, but his proximity was a warm, undeniable shield against the terror that had consumed her minutes prior. Penelope took a shaky sip, the burn of the alcohol bringing a temporary flush back to her pale cheeks. She looked around the opulent office, the mahogany bookshelves, the panoramic view of the Chicago skyline, the twinkling lights of the Navy Pier in the distance. It was a kingdom built on ruthlessness, and she was sitting right beside its king. Dominic, she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the hum of the HVAC system. If Matteo doesn't get to Liam in time, if that sniper pulls the trigger, he won't, Dominic replied, his tone leaving absolutely no room for doubt. He pulled out a customized encrypted tablet, his fingers flying across the screen as he accessed the building's internal security mainframe. Matteo is taking his ghost unit. These are men who operate in the shadows of the CIA and MI6 before they come to work for me. They use suppressed weaponry and thermal optics. The man looking at your brother will be blindfolded and bound before he even realizes he's no longer alone in the dark. Penelope nodded slowly, clutching the tumbler to her chest. She looked down at her own body, acutely aware of how much space she took up on the sleek Italian leather sofa. She had always felt out of place in this world of sleek assassins and razor-thin mafia wives. She was a woman who baked cookies on Sundays and spent her evenings reading thick historical biographies. Yet the most dangerous man in the Midwest was currently tearing his empire apart to protect her. At 1:32 a.m., Dominic's phone vibrated violently against the glass coffee table. He snatched it, putting it on speaker. "Report," Dominic barked. "Target secured, boss." Matteo's gravelly voice filled the room, accompanied by the muffled sounds of a struggle in the background. "We intercepted the shooter on the roof of the chemistry building, across from the dorm. Liam Hayes is fast asleep. He doesn't know a damn thing happened." Penelope let out a ragged, breathless sob, slumping forward as a tidal wave of relief crashed over her. Dominic placed a large, reassuring hand on her lower back, rubbing soothing circles over the soft curve of her spine. "Casualties?" Dominic asked, his eyes never leaving Penelope. "None on our side," Matteo confirmed. "The sniper is breathing, but he's got a shattered kneecap." He was carrying a customized Macmillan TAC 3RR8 professional gear, but he sang pretty quickly once Harrison applied some pressure to the wound. "And? Give me a name, Matteo. Who paid him?" There was a heavy pause on the other end of the line. "Boss, the wire transfer to the sniper's offshore account originated from an IP address inside Romano Holdings, specifically the West Wing Executive Suite. The biometric logs show the security override on the 45th floor tonight was authorized by a Level 1 key card." Dominic's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ground together. "Lorenzo?" "Yes, boss." "Your cousin." The sniper confessed Lorenzo hired him 3 days ago. Lorenzo is working with the Volkov syndicate out of Brighton Beach. They wanted the $20 million to purchase a shipment of weapons arriving at the port of Chicago tomorrow. They were going to use the weapons to wipe out your loyalists and stage a coup. They used Miss Hayes because she's the only one with the clearance to move that much liquid capital without triggering your personal banking alerts. The betrayal hung in the air like toxic smoke. Lorenzo, the man who had eaten at Dominic's table, who had sworn a blood oath to the family. He had sold out his own flesh and blood for a seat at the head of the table. And worse, he had used Penelope as the sacrificial pawn. "Where is Lorenzo right now?" Dominic asked, his voice dropping into a lethal, terrifying register. According to his vehicle's GPS tracker, his Mercedes Maybach just pulled into the underground parking garage of your building. He's coming up to check if Miss Hayes completed the transfer. The deadline is in 20 minutes. "Pull the tactical team back to headquarters," Dominic ordered smoothly. "But do not intercept Lorenzo. Let him come to the 45th floor. I will handle this rat myself." "Understood, boss." Dominic ended the call and tossed the phone onto the table. He turned to Penelope, his dark eyes burning with a dangerous fire. She shrank back slightly, intimidated by the sheer violence rolling off him in waves. "He used me?" Penelope whispered, the realization setting in. "Lorenzo has always hated me. He always made comments about my weight, about how I was too soft to work for the outfit. Lorenzo is a dead man walking," Dominic said, reaching out to cup her face in his palms. His thumbs brushed against her cheekbones, his touch surprisingly gentle. "He underestimated you, Penny. He looked at your softness and made it for weakness. He didn't see the woman who single-handedly saved this syndicate from 3 federal indictments. He didn't see the woman who holds my entire world together." Penelope's breath caught in her throat. She stared into his eyes, searching for the lie, but found only raw, unvarnished truth. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling, but a new spark of resolve igniting in her chest. "Oh, we give my traitorous cousin exactly what he wants." Dominic smiled, and it was a terrifying expression. A front-row seat to his own execution. "Go sit at your desk, Mia Cara. Open the banking terminal. When he walks through those doors, I want him to think he has won." The digital clock on Penelope's computer monitor flipped to 1:55 a.m. The soft blue light illuminated her face as she typed furiously, pretending to navigate the complex maze of offshore banking protocols. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs, a frantic rhythm that echoed in her ears. The heavy oak doors of the executive anteroom swung open with a quiet hiss. Penelope didn't look up, forcing herself to keep her eyes glued to the screen. The sound of expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against the hardwood floor announced his arrival. Lorenzo stepped into the room. He was impeccably dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, his slicked-back hair and sharp features a grotesque caricature of Dominic's natural authority. "Oh, well," Lorenzo sneered, leaning casually against the doorframe. "If it isn't the boss's favorite little workhorse. Still burning the midnight oil, Penelope? Or should I say packing your bags?" Penelope stopped typing. She swallowed hard, forcing her hands to remain still on the keyboard. "The transfer is nearly complete, Lorenzo. You didn't have to come up here." Lorenzo laughed, a dry, humorless sound. He strolled further into the room, pulling a silver hip flask from his breast pocket and taking a swig. "I wanted to make sure you didn't do anything stupid. You're a smart girl, Penny. Too smart for your own good, honestly. But you've always been overly emotional. It's a flaw of women like you. You carry too much weight, physically and mentally. It slows you down." Penelope's nails dug into her palms. She bit her tongue, playing the part of the terrified victim perfectly. "Just let my brother go, Lorenzo. You're getting the 20 million. "Oh, I'll let him go." Lorenzo smirked, stepping up to her desk. He leaned over, planting his hands on the glass surface, invading her personal space. He smelled of expensive cologne and cheap betrayal. "But you're still leaving Chicago tonight. If I ever see your fat face in this city again, I'll put a bullet between Liam's eyes myself. Dominic won't even notice you're gone. You're just a secretary, easily replaceable." "I wouldn't be so sure about that, cousin." The voice came from the shadows of Dominic's private office. Lorenzo froze, the blood draining from his face instantly. He spun around, his hand flying to the holster at his hip. Dominic stepped out of the darkness, a suppressed Heckler & Koch USP tactical pistol resting casually in his right hand. He looked like the Grim Reaper incarnate, his eyes pitch-black voids devoid of mercy or hesitation. "Dominic," Lorenzo stammered, raising his hands in a placating gesture, though his right hand hovered dangerously close to his weapon. "What are you doing here? I thought you were at the docks." "You thought wrong, Sihoram," Dominic said smoothly, taking a slow, deliberate step forward. "You thought a lot of things, Lorenzo. You thought you could outsmart me. You thought you could conspire with the Volkovs without my network finding out. And most unforgivably, you thought you could threaten Penelope." Lorenzo's facade cracked. Desperation twisted his features. "Dom, listen to me. She's a liability. She knows too much, and she's weak. The Volkovs offered us a partnership, a way to double our territory. But they needed a sign of good faith. Faith, some capital. I did this for the family. You did this for yourself, Dominic countered, his voice a low, vibrating growl. He raised the pistol, aiming it squarely at Lorenzo's chest. You sold out your blood for a seat you haven't earned, and a crown you are too weak to wear. And you insulted the woman I love. Penelope gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. The woman I love? The words hung in the air, echoing off the mahogany walls, rewriting the entire reality of her existence. Lorenzo's eyes darted wildly between Dominic and Penelope. A manic, hysterical laugh bubbled from his throat. You love her? This glorified filing cabinet? You're pathetic, Dominic. The outfit will never respect you if they know you're bending the knee to a fat civilian. Lorenzo made his move, drawing his weapon with practiced speed. But Dominic was faster. He didn't even blink. Foot. 2 suppressed shots echoed through the room, sounding like sharp cracks of a whip. Lorenzo's eyes went wide. His gun clattered uselessly to the floor. He looked down at his ruined chest, 2 dark red blossoms expanding rapidly across his pristine charcoal suit. He staggered backward, his knees giving out, and collapsed onto the Persian rug with a heavy final thud. Silence returned to the 45th floor, absolute and suffocating. Dominic lowered the weapon, engaging the safety. He didn't spare his dead cousin a second glance. He holstered the gun and turned immediately to Penelope. She was standing now, trembling violently, her eyes locked on the lifeless body on the floor. She had known Dominic was dangerous, but seeing him kill, seeing the effortless, cold precision of it, was entirely different. Dominic crossed the room in 2 strides, kicking Lorenzo's weapon away before pulling Penelope into his chest. He wrapped his arms around her lush, soft frame, burying his face in her wild, chestnut curls. She buried her face in his neck, her hands gripping the lapels of his suit jacket to keep herself upright. It's over, Dominic murmured fiercely into her ear, his large hands stroking her back. He's gone. The sniper is in custody. Your brother is safe. The Volkovs will be dealt with by morning. You are safe, Penny. I swear to you on my life. You are safe. Penelope pulled back slightly, looking up into his dark, intense eyes. The predator was gone, replaced by a man utterly devoted, stripped bare of his defenses. You love me, she whispered, the tears returning. But this time, they were not born of fear. I have been obsessed with you since the day you walked into my office, Dominic confessed, his thumb tracing the curve of her full lips. I love your brilliant mind. I love your loyalty. And I love every single beautiful soft inch of your body. You are a queen, Penelope. And from this night forward, anyone who forgets that will answer to me. Before she could formulate a response, Dominic leaned down and captured her lips. This was desperate, bruising, and deeply passionate. A collision of fear, adrenaline, and years of suppressed longing. Penelope melted against him, her curves pressing seamlessly into his hard, muscular frame. She tasted scotch and danger, but more importantly, she tasted absolute, unwavering security. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. He looked over her shoulder at the mess on her desk, the cardboard box, The burner phone. The terrifying photo. Empty that box, Dominic ordered softly, a small, genuine smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You aren't resigning. In fact, we need to renegotiate your contract. Being the boss's wife comes with a significantly higher hazard pay. Penelope let out a wet, joyful laugh, pulling him down for another kiss. The shadows of the Chicago underworld would always be there, lurking just outside the glass windows. But standing in the center of Dominic Romano's fortress, held tightly in the arms of the city's most feared predator, Penelope had never felt more at home. Did Penelope make the right choice staying with Dominic? Or is she plunging deeper into a world of deadly mafia secrets? Would you trust a ruthless mob boss to protect your family? Or would you have taken the money and run? Let me know your thoughts on this crazy twist in the comments below. If you loved this intense, real-life mafia romance drama, hit that like button, share this story with your friends, and subscribe for more heart-pounding storytelling.